Hello, and thanks for joining me for this overview of ethical data management. I'm Shawn Yeager, VP of Sales with Dataswift. And also thank you for taking the time to participate in Hack from Home this weekend, April 4th through 5th. We are delighted to have you with us and excited to see what you build. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of ethical data management and the shift that we see in markets, in the broader economy, and certainly among users and individuals in terms of their awareness of the necessity of this movement. We believe strongly that within the next decade, every application and website on the planet will change how it stores user data. From the latest announcement today of a major hotel chain to what we all by now probably know happens with companies like Clearview and others, individuals simply do not trust big technology, and further, they don't trust most brands with regard to how they protect and handle their personal data. Clearly, this isn't working, neither for individuals nor the companies that need to generate revenue based on the way they interact with their consumers. In short, trust is everything. Trust is key to building strong customer relationships. It's key to individuals and users trusting the applications and the companies that handle their data. And it's absolutely crucial to how we move forward from surveillance capitalism to something better. Now, the problem as we see it is that fundamentally, data, personal data specifically, is a new asset class. The increased regulation from GDPR in Europe to the California Consumer Privacy Act in California and others that are rippling across the country and the world mean that data now has to be treated as would be any other high-value asset. Then the question becomes, is the asset on my books, if you will, or the assets in my data lake toxic or tame? How should I handle it? How should I, as an organization, as a technology company, as a startup building a new app, how should I and how must I now treat that personal data to comply with legal privacy concerns, and more importantly, what individuals now believe is the right way to handle their data? What this often does, and what it leads to, is reduced data mobility. In other words, if I, as an enterprise, a startup, an application developer, respond and react without a plan, I'm likely to lock down that data, and that reduces data mobility. We believe strongly that data in motion, data that is liquid, if you will, is how value and revenue is generated, both for the individual who owns that data, as well as the application or enterprise that's handling that data. Now, of course, most of us, if we're in this realm, are familiar with the legal exposure, whether it's the growing privacy frameworks, legislative frameworks. It's becoming more and more expensive to comply and to treat data in a way that's deemed compliant. And ultimately, what this leads to is an environment where the largest to the smallest organizations are uncertain about the future and how they should go ahead. We see personal data management as falling within one of four tiers. The first, Defiant. Now, we can all think of many companies, without naming names, that are defiant in that they invest in spending on tactical workarounds. They may arbitrage the jurisdictions they operate in. They may use content distribution networks cleverly to navigate around legislation. But in the end, what they're doing is trying to dodge the rules and dodge what is otherwise good behavior. There are those that are compliant. We see this now as the new just barely enough, right? To be compliant, to comply with the rules is not a position of strength, it is a position of defense. So beyond that, what comes next? Well, it's trustworthy, right? It's companies, many of which we can again think of, who employ privacy by design. They are actually adapting their products, their solutions, their consumer and customer experiences to ensure that individuals have the right to privacy and control over the data that those organizations hold. But we believe there is still another level, and that is to behave ethically. Companies who are re-architecting their systems, and not just their technology, but their governance systems, the way they handle and process data, person to person, system to system across the organization, to assure that they're preserving the rights and dignity of the human, of the user, who ultimately is the person to whom that data belongs. Now further, and we won't take too much time to go into this today, we have developed an ethical data framework, and these are assets and documents that'll be forthcoming some survey tools and other things that we're excited to share with you soon, but I wanted to give you an overview. So across this spectrum from defiant to ethical, and ranging across these 4 pillars, collection, storage, processing, and sharing, we are working actively to take a leadership role and to share this information freely with the community and our ecosystem, to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we believe is trustworthy. This is what we believe is ethical. And specifically, here are the guidelines that would determine how to collect, store, process, and share data in these ways. And again, very excited to share more with you soon about this. Another way to look at the process of moving to the ethical treatment of data is certainly that it's a journey. And that is to say that most organizations of any size, now for a startup, great. I would say you have as often as the case, you have the nimbleness and the ability to jump straight to ethical. And that is what certainly we're here to do this weekend with the Hack from Home Hackathon. But in the broader sense, and I think if we look at other solutions to, let's say, COVID-19 in the case of this weekend's event, many of them perhaps are unambitious, and that is to say they have a low exposure in terms of the data that they collect and hold, but they also have a low consideration for the rights and dignity of the users from whom they have gotten that data. Others, we say somewhat tongue-in-cheek, may be turtling, they're just sort of hiding from the reality. We've talked about compliant being the barely enough new normal, but really, if there is a high exposure of the data, and again, I'll reference without naming names, a very large global hotel chain that was penetrated or hacked for the 2nd time this year, I believe it is, they have high exposure in terms of the amount of data or the types of data that they collect. What we hope they do is they move to a high consideration for rights and dignity to handle that data in a way that is not only more secure in terms of data security and privacy, but is also more ethical. And what I want to leave you with as we go into the hackathon this weekend, and perhaps if this information is new or if Dataswift is new to you, is to introduce and invite you to learn more about the 3 organizations, Dataswift, the commercial entity who provides the HatDex platform, and the APIs, the SaaS APIs made available to application developers and organizations large and small. The Hat Lab, which is the research, education, and policy arm, and the organization that manages the Hat microserver open source project. And then certainly the Hat Community Foundation, which governs this entire ecosystem and drives growth, innovation, regulation, and representation of anyone building on the Hat microserver platform. And last but not least, to remind you and invite you to, if you've not already, visit hackfromhome.com, where you'll learn more, everything that you'll need to know about this weekend's event. And certainly we want to welcome you into the Hack from Home Slack to interact with, at this point, roughly 300 other participants, mentors, developers, advisors, and fantastic sponsors and participants in this event. So again, this is Shawn Yeager with Dataswift, and thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you this weekend.